Hello everybody, my name is Nick. I'm the Careers and Skills Executive from the Royal Aeronautical Society, and I'm here today to give you an overview and have a chat to you about careers within aerospace and aviation. But more importantly, we're going to talk about the current situation in terms of the job market, in terms of how you can navigate your career through a difficult time, and I'll be giving you some really useful hints and tips and insights into what's going on at the moment in the industry, where the opportunities are, and also how you can get involved with us at the Royal Aeronautical Society to advance your careers within the industry as well. So just a bit of information about who we are. So we are the world's only professional body dedicated to the entire aerospace and aviation industry. And we essentially help provide you with the tools to network with your industry peers and professionals, as well as our industry partners through lots of our events that I'll tell you about later on. We give you the opportunity to develop as a professional individual, whether you are an engineer or a pilot, cabin crew, or you're perhaps doing something in a niche area such as aerospace medicine or aviation finance or air law and things like that. So we give you that opportunity and platform to develop yourself as a professional within the aerospace and aviation industry. And finally, we have a huge bank of knowledge at the Society. So we're committed to expanding the industry's knowledge, and we have a very authoritative voice within the industry all over the world. We have a global membership of over 25,000 individuals, ranging from engineers to pilots to those working in other areas as well, such as operational roles, working at the airports, or doing something, as I say, completely different, such as aerospace medicine. So we give you the opportunity to speak to a diverse range of individuals, connect with them, but also learn from them as well. And we have a huge range of resources that you can access through our membership services as well. So let's go into the topic or the main topic of discussion today, which is talking about careers within aerospace and aviation. So just a bit of an overview into where the jobs actually sit within the industry. So the UK has one of the biggest aerospace markets in the world, or industries in the world. We employ well over 100,000 people directly in the aerospace sector. So that's more looking at sort of manufacturing and things like that. So we are very lucky to have a lot of organisations in this country that employ lots and lots of young professionals, whether it's coming out of university, but also lots of graduate programs and apprenticeships as well that are available. So the two main sort of areas that you might want to look at within the industry are the sort of traditional STEM related disciplines. And these include things like engineering, maths and science. So you might want to work for an aircraft manufacturer, such as Airbus or Rolls-Royce, where you can do an engineering related apprenticeship, and that's looking at, or university degree, and that's looking at aircraft design and manufacture. The other side of engineering is maintenance, and there's lots of opportunities for you to go down the route of aircraft maintenance. So this is where you might work for an airline or a maintenance repair and overhaul provider. And again, you can do apprenticeships, but you can also do a university degree as well. And then on the other side, you've got the traditional non-STEM disciplines as well. So these are all the typical departments that you might see in lots and lots of different businesses and organizations. More commercial roles, for example. So a lot of companies within the aerospace and aviation sector, there's the opportunity for you to do roles in business, in management, finance, and so on. So really, if you're not necessarily interested in things like engineering, then there really is something for everybody. If you are interested in business, you're interested in journalism or events, the industry does recruit individuals in those sectors as well. And there are apprenticeships and even graduate schemes that look at the more sort of commercial element of the industry as well. So again, as I mentioned, we are lucky in the UK to have such a big aerospace and aviation sector. So we have lots of main players, as we like to call them, or primes, and these are the larger companies. So these here, some of them I've mentioned, such as Airbus, BAE Systems, GE, Boeing, Leonardo, and so on. These are all the big players within the industry. So, and then there are some key growth areas as well. So, such as aerospace, average earnings as an aerospace engineer, you tend to earn a lot higher than the UK average. On average, you tend to earn about £43,000 a year. As I say, we employ over 100,000 people in the UK and nearly 4,000 apprentices as well. And we export an awful lot of our products all over the world. So we're one of the biggest exporters in terms of aerospace, and particularly defence as well. So the UK actually has one of the largest global defence exports. We are one of the largest global defence exporters. So we hold about 14% of the global market share. That was back in 2018. So the defence aerospace side of things actually employs about 135,000 people, and again over 4,000 apprentices as well. And other key areas or key growth areas such as security, space, that's a massive growth area in the UK. And 40% of all the small satellites that are in orbit were actually manufactured here in the UK. And we've got some really exciting larger companies, but some really interesting startups as well within this country as well, who are all sort of recruiting young professionals. We have the first apprenticeships now available within the space sector. And there's some exciting developments coming through on apprenticeships within space, particularly engineering related as well. And then you've got developments and growth in areas such as technology, artificial intelligence, robotics as well. We're already seeing trials happen, for example, at Heathrow using the motor TOC, which is a robotic, electric powered tug to push aircraft back. We're seeing facial recognition technology being used in sort of boarding processes at airports, in security, in sort of baggage systems as well. We're seeing a lot of automation and robotics and AI being used in those sorts of systems. And then again, in sort of maintenance, repair and overhaul, we're seeing the way aircraft are maintained start to change, and we're seeing a lot of investment and a lot of development going on, particularly for the manufacturers. So the manufacturers now, such as Boeing and Airbus, are starting to branch into MRO, which is maintenance, repair and overhaul as well, which is something they haven't traditionally done before. So let's talk a little bit about what the landscape for industry looks like here in the UK. So we're going to talk about those primes, so those larger companies, but the industry is absolutely massive in the UK. So we're also going to talk about SMEs, so small, medium-sized enterprises and companies in the supply chain as well. And I'm going to give you some really useful websites that you can go to research sort of all of these perhaps smaller companies, these startups, these SMEs and companies in supply chains as well. So there are many sectors within the sector, if you like. So you've got the entire sort of aerospace sector, but then you have sub-sectors underneath that. So I've highlighted some of these here that you might be interested in specialising in, such as airframe design and manufacture, component manufacturing, so whether that's things like wings and engines. So for example, Airbus manufacture a lot of the wings for their aircraft here in the UK, and then Rolls-Royce, obviously, we've got engine manufacturing and things like that. But then you might also want to look at such as design and innovation, whether it's material science, testing, flight systems, software, things like that, simulation, flight simulation. You might want to look at sort of civil or military applications as well. There's a lot of development going on the sustainability and climate change front as well. So the industry is heavily involved in a lot of projects at the moment around making the industry more sustainable, making flying greener as well. So we've got lots of companies at the moment working on some really exciting projects within the sector about coming up with sort of futuristic new designs for aircraft, but also perhaps alternative fueled aircraft, whether it's looking at hydrogen power or even electric aircraft as well. So we're entering a very exciting time in terms of the way we're all going to fly in the future. We're probably going to be flying on aircraft that look very different to the ones in service now, but also the way that they are powered as well. It's going to be a lot greener as well into the future as well. And a lot of young professionals, graduates, and apprentices are working on these sorts of projects right now. And as I mentioned earlier, there's also roles that you might want to do that are more commercially focused, such as project management, leadership, business related as well. But just to give you an idea in terms of the supply chain to the industry. So this just gives you a bit of a visual in terms of what the suppliers look like for the A380 production line. And this is just in one area of the UK. So this is just in the Midlands, so just in one region. And you've got about 10 to 15 companies here surrounding Airbus that supply them with various different components and things like that for that aircraft. So I've broken them down into the wings, engine, fuselage. So again, this is looking at the manufacturing process. So again, the engineering side of things. But you've got lots of different companies here that aren't Airbus themselves, but actually sit in Airbus's supply chain. And these are all companies that will have vacancies. They might have apprenticeships. They might have graduate schemes. So some of them you may not have heard of. Some of them you may have heard of, and that could be because they're a very small company as well. But there is the opportunity there for you. So where can you find these companies? Well, again, in the UK, we have lots of different trade bodies, trade associations, or different regions. So you can take a look, for example, on the Midlands Aerospace Alliance, if you live in that region, and you can discover all of the companies that have something to do with aerospace on that website, on that trade body website, and you can do some of your own research, see what's out there, see what companies are recruiting, which companies perhaps offer apprenticeships or graduate programs or direct entry roles and things like that. And there are others here for different regions such as the Southwest, Northwest, Southeast, and so on. And others specifically looking at the space industry. So a really, really good tool for the space industry in terms of locating companies is the space.ktn landscapes tool. So this gives you, again, sort of a picture or a directory of companies within that particular sector. So I'd really encourage you to use these websites to just build yourself a picture of all the companies that are out there, companies you might want to work for as well, and just see perhaps the opportunities that are available to you. It broadens your horizons as well, rather than just focusing on the big companies, the main players, that we've all heard of. It is increasingly competitive within those organizations because they've obviously got a big name for themselves, but they do have, great opportunities. But, there is a whole other side to the industry as well that you might want to look at as well, that might still have opportunities and recruitment available. It's a similar picture for the aviation side of things. So if you want to work for an airline, or you want to work in perhaps an airport or another setting within aviation, it's a very, very similar picture. So you can go to all these different trade associations, such as Airlines UK, to get a directory of every single UK registered airline, for example. And for example, the BBGA, this is for business and general aviation. So if you're interested in perhaps looking at working for a business jet company or a handling agent, for example, or another service provider within that part of the industry, then the BBGA has a vast directory of companies that you can research as well. And these are the sorts of things that you'll come across. So you'll come across sort of different sort of maps of the UK where you can click on various different regions, different companies, and then you can narrow them down based on capabilities or what that company specializes in, for example. So whether it's satellites, whether it's landing gear, engines, or a specific component, things like that, or whether it's a specific industry. So whether it's just looking at, say, propulsion, or whether it's looking at sort of satellite development, space vehicle design, an airport, an airline, or an ancillary company, for example, such as a caterer for airlines. So this is the sort of thing that you will come across. So I'd really encourage you to use these websites just to get build a picture of what the landscape looks like in the UK for industry, because it is absolutely massive, and this will just broaden your horizons, particularly when you are searching for that job, whether it's a graduate scheme, but also an apprenticeship as well. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on at the moment. Obviously, the COVID pandemic has placed a huge amount of pressure on the industry, and the impact really is indiscriminate in terms of which parts of the industry it has affected. So various different parts of the industry have been impacted by the pandemic. So, the industry relies on the global travel and tourism market, and that's worth about $10 trillion globally. And that's still been put on hold. And we've had a lot of industry players, the airlines in particular, that have had to be bailed out by their governments. And, the industry was already fairly fragile going into the COVID pandemic. And we lost some airlines, we lost Thomas Cook and Flybe here in the UK before the pandemic really sort of kicked off. And there's been lots of changes to employment as well. So we're seeing some companies now That they're making massive redundancies, they're making restructured, they're going through restructures and things like that. So, we're seeing a lot of people become either unemployed from the industry and having to focus on something else, or we're seeing companies change the way that they're structured. And what that means is some people may be on slightly different contracts, such as pilots, for example. So, going forward, there probably is going to be increased competition for fewer opportunities. But as I'll explain later on, there are still some key areas within the aerospace and aviation sector that are still recruiting and where there are still opportunities. And I think there's a lot more optimism around the world now, as we do have vaccines and treatments more widely available. So I think there's definite or increased optimism there within the industry as well. But if we narrow that down based on the sort of aerospace manufacturing side of things, so if we take the OEMs, so the original equipment manufacturers, so these are the main players such as Airbus, Boeing, for example, these have all been impacted by the disruption, particularly those who manufacture commercial aircraft, where perhaps it hasn't been as dramatically affected. It's on the defence and space side of things. So here in the UK, you've got companies like BAE Systems who are actually recruiting more graduates and apprentices than they ever have done before as well. There's also going to be a requirement, as I briefly mentioned, on the sustainability and climate change front. There's going to be a requirement for stakeholders to refocus their attention and companies to really pay attention to sustainability and the future of flying as well. So aircraft designs will have to be focused, and lots of projects and investment will have to begin on aircraft design, but also things like air transport management solutions as well, so such as redesigning, rethinking airspace, and also utilising all of that new technology that is going to start to come through in the near future. And then for the airlines and aviation, the full impact of COVID is still relatively unknown at the moment, which does make it a little bit difficult to predict. There are some predictions out there that looks like aviation is going to take between 3 to 5 years to fully recover. So we could see aviation, or the airlines in particular, not return to growth until 2026. But that is back to sort of 2019 levels of growth. And 2019 was a record year for the industry. So, that may seem a little bit alarming that it might take till sort of 2026 for the industry to go back to 2019 growth levels. But hopefully before then, we will start to see a recovery. There's a definite pent-up demand that is still there, particularly here in the UK. Shortly after the government announcement here in the UK for the roadmap, airlines like EasyJet, for example, saw massive increases in holiday and flight bookings. So the demand is still well and truly there, but it's just whether we will be allowed and whether it will be safe to travel. That is still the key question. But there is still a lot of optimism and hope around now, particularly as we do have vaccines that are starting to be rolled out globally. So I mentioned earlier that demand is still available and there are still vacancies. We're hearing sort of every day of various companies that are opening up their graduate programs, apprenticeships and things like that. But some key growth areas include defence and space. This hasn't been as affected by the COVID pandemic as perhaps other sectors within the industry. And then you might want to look at sort of those SMEs and startups. So like I mentioned earlier on, using those websites, those trade body websites to locate perhaps smaller companies that might have opportunities. You might want to look at commercial roles, perhaps even consultancy, whether it's aviation consultancy or engineering consultancy. They have a lot of graduate programs. For example, a lot of the big engineering consultancies run a lot of graduate programs. And then sectors such as logistics and cargo, this is a massive growth area and hasn't really stopped throughout the pandemic. The image there is quite topical. You've got an Airbus A350 being used there to cargo and ship PPE around the world. And we're seeing a lot of airlines, convert their commercial aircraft just to operate cargo. So This is again a sort of massive key growth area. We're seeing specific cargo carriers, whether it's the likes of things like DHL or a British cargo carrier such as Cargo Logic really expand their operations. And we're seeing a lot of aircraft orders, a lot of freighter aircraft being ordered as well around the world, because as the industry expands, and it's really been a global effort. The cargo aviation really has sort of come together throughout the pandemic as well. So this is again an area that you might want to look at, you might want to focus on, because there are going to be opportunities available. So now let's talk about what you can be doing to sort of prepare yourself for job market and also the inevitable upturn that's going to happen in the near future. So just a few top tips here from us, really, in terms of what you can be doing over the next few months to get yourself prepared to get a job within the industry, or whether you want to go on to an apprenticeship, for example. So it's really important to not only sort of review your yourself in terms of your experiences and your skills, but you need to highlight sort of what your long and short-term professional goals are as well. You need to do that research. So I gave you a few of those websites earlier on in terms of where you can research companies you might want to work for. So make sure you research any companies you might want to work for. Perhaps connect and engage with somebody in terms of contacting an individual who might be able to give you some advice, and that links in with activating and expanding your network as well. Making sure that all your documents are in order. So that's things like your CV, your cover letters and things like that are in order. You've got those up to date as well, and you're making the most out of your CV as well. So just to give you an idea in terms of how a CV should generally be laid out. So 2 pages is generally the maximum. Any longer than that, employers tend not to read them. Followed by these sort of subheadings. Now, particularly in the UK, there's no written rule in terms of how to structure a CV. So however you guys sort of want to lay it out, but there are some general best practices. And these sections here should be what you guys should be aiming for, particularly as young professionals coming out of school, college, university, for example. So things like your contact details, name should be at the top, followed by things like education, work experience, and so on. We've got lots and lots of information that I'll tell you about later on. And do come and have a chat to us at our stand, or get in contact with us if you want to have a chat to us in more detail about CVs as well. So how can you get involved with us at the Society? So we've got lots and lots of resources for you to access. So we have a specific careers guidance service at the Royal Aeronautical Society that you can access for free. And you can contact us via the team email address at the bottom there. So just careers@aerosociety.com. And then we also have a dedicated careers website as well. So careersinAerospace.com. And this has got lots of information on there, such as how to write a CV, a cover letter, and all sorts of other different information about your career management strategies and careers guidance as well. We've also just launched a brand new platform called Career Flight Path. So this is our online interactive careers management platform. And this is available for all Royal Aeronautical Society members. So, and I'll tell you in a second how you can sign up for the free student affiliate membership, and you would be able to access this platform for free. And this has got lots of useful tools, such as a CV 360, which is an AI-powered CV feedback tool. It has a CV builder, an interview simulator, lots of free sort of psychometric tests that you can practice as well. So before you do those, you can practice them using our system. And it also has a huge library of e-learning content as well. So if you just want to do some free courses, then we've got all of that available for you on Career Flight Path. As I say, you do have to be a member of the Royal Aeronautical Society for you to access that as well. But if anybody does want to get in contact with us to arrange a one-to-one conversation with a member of the team, then you're more than welcome to drop us an email at that email address at the bottom, and we can talk about your career within the industry, whether you just want to have a general chat in terms of where to sort of focus your attention and what your interests are, or whether you're interested in apprenticeships, you're interested in going to university. We can talk about all these options as well. So to sign up and get involved with us and get access to all of our materials, including the careers advice and the career flight path platform, you can sign up to the free membership. So you just go to aerosociety.com/student if you are a full-time student. If you're part-time, there's a fee of £47 for the year, but that's prorated based on when you start. You can also scan the QR code there with your phones, and that will take you to a really, really short form that'll take 5 or 10 minutes to fill out, and then we'll activate your membership on your behalf. So I'd encourage you all to get involved with the society. It's free whilst you're studying full time. You will then be able to access all of our materials. So I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to listen to the presentation. Hopefully I gave you some really useful information. I know it's a lot of information in a short period of time, but any questions, do get in touch with us at careers@aerosociety.com. So thank you very much and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Take care.